I forced my son to miss his graduation because his twin sister failed. When he said, "I'm going," I emailed the college claiming he lied, kept the family from attending, and took his sister on vacation instead. Now my son has cut me off. Our $8,500 support is gone. And then his lawyer called. What if trying to protect your child, just one desperate moment, cost you absolutely everything? 2 weeks after making what I thought was the right decision for my daughter, I found myself holding a crumpled letter, my name butchered, that ripped the very ground out from under me, the farm, my legacy, gone. And trust me, that was just the beginning of losing my family. My name's Charles, and I'm 49. A farmer, born and bred. Corn, soy, hay when the fickle weather plays nice. I'm usually the background guy, the fixer, the one who just quietly says, "I'll take care of it." And then, well, I do. I keep a grease-stained ledger. I know every rattle on my old John Deere by sound. And my coffee? Strong enough to wake dead roosters. I'm also a dad. To twins, Ethan and Ellie. They just turned 18. Good kids, you know? Different as sun and shade, but my kids all the same. Here's the thing. I never set out to be the villain in my own story. I just wanted to smooth things over like I always do. But sometimes, when you try to mend one broken thing, you just smash another. It all started on a Thursday night in May. The kitchen smelled like diesel and dish soap, classic farmhouse blend. Ethan stood by the mudroom door, wearing his wrinkled honor cords, grinning like the little boy who used to steal grapes from the pantry. He waved an envelope. "Dad," he practically burst. "I did it. Dean's List. I'm walking on Saturday." His pride was a huge, bright beacon. Ellie was at the table, hunched over her laptop, that new AI success assistant app the school pushed all year, chirping away every few minutes with its perfectly useless tips. That night, it chirped. Recommendation. Siamese outcomes for twins to reduce comparative distress. It sounded ridiculous, like a fortune cookie written by a robot trying to sound smart. But Ellie? She stared at it like it was gospel. "I'm not going," she said, her voice flat, not even looking up. "I failed calc. They held me back from walking. It's humiliating. If he goes, everyone will compare us." She said it like a scientific fact, not a feeling. Just fact. I tried to be light, to ease the tension. "Honey, you worked hard. You'll walk in December. We'll clap then, too." She flinched, like I'd slapped her. "That's not the point. The point is equal treatment," the AI says. Ethan let out a small, almost imperceptible laugh. Just once. It wasn't mean, not really, but it cut. And Ellie heard it. "So you're better?" she snapped, finally looking at him, her eyes flashing. "No," he said, his smile fading. "I just passed. I want to go. I earned it." The AI chimed again. Suggested boundary. Synchronous family experience. Action. Decline attendance until both siblings are ready. I should have unplugged the stupid thing right then. I should have said what I knew in my bones. That fairness isn't sameness. But Ellie had that look. Her eyes wide, jaw trembling. Her pride, her whole world, hanging by a single fragile thread. I'd seen calves stuck in a fence with that exact look. Caught. Panicked. One wrong move from tearing themselves apart. "Maybe we do it together in December," I heard myself say. "As a family." I didn't just suggest it. I made it the rule. My gut clenched, but I told myself I was doing the right thing. I opened the family group chat and typed, "Nobody goes on Saturday. Not your mother, not your cousins, not even James. We walk as one family in December." I didn't outright threaten anyone, but I called them one by one. I pushed, I cajoled, until their maybe turned into a reluctant promise. Uncle Joe replied with a confused, "Charlie, you sure?" I called my parents directly. "If you show up for Ethan and not Ellie," I told them, my voice tight, "you'll break her." "I'm not letting that happen." There was a long, pregnant pause. The kind that screams, "We're letting you take responsibility so we don't have to." My mom finally sighed. "Okay, Charles. If you want it this way, we'll stay home." One by one, the relatives texted back. Thumbs ups, short, guilty answers. And just like that, I didn't just miss my son's graduation. I made sure he didn't have anyone else there either. Ethan stared at me then, like he didn't recognize the man standing in front of him. "Dad," he said, his voice raw. "I'm going Saturday." "Ethan?" Ellie whispered, her voice a plea, and my chest tightened with that old, familiar pressure. The one that shows up when the weather report screams, "Hail," and I've got silage still out in the field. "Fix it, Charles. Reduce harm. Keep the peace." So I did the thing that broke us. That night, after the house went quiet, I wrote an email to the registrar. Words I never thought I'd type. I believe my son, Ethan, lied about his remaining credits and eligibility to walk. I asked the school to double-check his file immediately. I hit send. The second that message left my outbox, a cold dread washed over me. I knew I'd crossed a line. A huge, unfixable line. Then I told Ellie to pack a bag. "We'll drive to the coast," I said, trying to sound breezy. "Just the two of us. Clear your head." Ethan knocked on my door at 6 a.m. sharp. "You coming to rehearsal?" I lied. Felt like ash in my mouth. "Work." Fence line snapped. "I'll meet you." I didn't meet him. I put Ellie's duffel in the truck and drove east. Away from the gymnasium where my son stood under fluorescent lights. Waiting, his phone buzzing with a message that never came. On the highway, Ellie eventually fell asleep. I turned on the radio, trying to drown out the noise in my head. But it was just one sentence on repeat. "What did you just do?" When we got back 3 days later, there was a photo in the family chat. Ethan, in a cheap cap and gown, standing alone in the backyard, his tassel crooked, holding his diploma like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Underneath it, just a single line of text. "I walked without you." He didn't answer my calls for 3 days. That would have been enough to sink me. But then, when I went to the mailbox, just to escape the kitchen's suffocating silence, I found it. A certified letter from the county office. I didn't understand the first paragraph. My eyes blurred. But the second paragraph? That one hit me like a physical blow. Transfer of ownership recorded. Parcel number 1183, known as Miller Farm, now held by James and Carrie Reed. James is my brother. The golden one. The one with 3 kids and a boat he barely uses. I stood there on the porch, the paper flapping in the wind, and it just clicked. That entire weekend, I hadn't just lost my son. I'd lost 2 children, one by my own terrible choice. One by a signature I didn't even recognize. Let me back up. I grew up the second of 2 boys. My father believed in work like some folks believe in church. James? He could charm a banker out of his tie. Me? I could fix a combine with 3 bolts and a prayer. Guess which skill got framed in the living room? Started small. When we were 8 and 10, Dad took us to the feed store. He let James pick out a pocket knife. I got a keychain flashlight. "So you can see what your brother's cutting," Dad said with a wink for James. When James dented the truck at 16, Dad just clapped him on the back. First scratch out of the way. When I asked to borrow the truck for prom, he tossed me the keys and said, "No funny business." Then he reminded me where the spare was, just in case I didn't notice the obvious warning. I learned to swallow. Whole. At 19, Dad blew his knee in the auger. Just like that, more work, less money. I picked up the slack. I ran dawn to dark and then some. James visited most Sundays, dropping advice like confetti. Then went home to his calm house and his wife, who ironed napkins for fun. 5 years ago, when Dad floated the idea of selling the farm land high, taxes higher, I panicked. I wasn't ready to see it go. So I did the math: mortgage $330,000 after rolling in the line of credit and a new barn roof. I said the words that became my cage. "I'll carry it. I'll make the payments. Keep it in the family." Mom cried. Dad shook my hand like a business partner. James hugged me and said, "You're saving our legacy, Charlie." I set up autopay. I sold a tractor I loved. I skipped vacations. I put off dental work and drove to town with a molar screaming, just to make the note. For 5 years I paid month by month. Interest and principal. Penalties once, when a check hiccuped and bruised my pride for a week. I have the receipts. All of them. In a shoebox labeled farm. Do not toss. I thought family meant something. I thought legacy included me by default. Mom texted me about every little thing that needed fixing. Fence wire. Some pump. The back steps. "You're handy," she'd say. "Your brother's swamped." I'd show up with a toolbox and a shrug. James would show up with opinions and a latte. Then this spring, the red flags started coming in like crows, dark and ominous. Flag 1. Mom handed me a manila envelope after Sunday lunch. "Can you take this to the post office?" She giggled. "Taxes for the trust thingy." I looked. The return address was a law firm 3 towns over I'd never heard of. The label said, "Miller Family Trust Administrative Packet." Trust what? I asked, my brow furrowing. "Oh, the thing Dad set up when his knee got worse." She waved her hand like it was nothing. "The way you wave at a fly." Flag 2. I went to renew the farm insurance, and the agent asked me if the ownership name was still Reed Family Holdings. I paused. "What holdings?" He looked puzzled. "That's what it's been for 2 years. He turned the screen toward me. There it was. Reed Family Holdings, LLC. Manager, James Andrew Reed. My name wasn't anywhere. Not as manager. Not as member. Not even as a footnote. I paid the $2,880 in premiums and said nothing, because that's what I've always done. Flag 3. Ellie's counselor emailed me a list of parent logins for her AI assistant, asking me to ensure guardians were synced. When I clicked the link, I saw a note. Guardian 1, Carrie Reed. Guardian 2, James Reed. Guardian 3, Charles, secondary. I stared at that screen longer than I should have. How many small, subtle edits had pushed me to the edge. So I started collecting. I printed the mortgage statements from the bank. 5 years, 60 payments, my name on every single line. I printed every Venmo payment to Dad for tractor parts. Every text from Mom that started with, "Honey, can you?" I drove to the county recorder and asked to see the deed. The woman behind the glass looked up my parcel number. "Ah," she said, like she'd found a familiar recipe card. "Transfer recorded last month. Grantors, Michael and Judith Miller. Grantee, Reed Family Holdings LLC. Reed," I said, even though she'd just said it. Even though I knew exactly what it meant. "As in James." "I can't tell you members," she said, not unkindly. "LLCs, you know? Is there a life estate recorded? Right of first refusal? Anything?" She scrolled. "There's a trust document incorporated by reference, but I can't see it here. You'd need copies. I'll pay for copies." She printed a stack as thick as my thumb and slid it under the glass. I paid cash and walked to the truck, my heart beating a frantic drum in my ears. Back home, I poured coffee and read every page like it was written in a foreign language I almost understood. That's when I saw it. Clause 4.7. Bolded like a bone under thin skin. 4.7. Satisfaction of secured obligation. In the event any beneficiary contributes payments exceeding 50% of the outstanding mortgage principal and interest within a 5-year period, a right of equitable lien shall attach to the property in favor of said beneficiary enforceable upon alienation, encumbrance, or material misrepresentation of title. It was plain enough. I'd been paying for an equitable lien. A right, my right, except the next line turned my stomach. As amended 18 months after inception by unanimous consent of trustees. There were 3 signatures, Mom, Dad, and James. Mine wasn't required. Mine wasn't on it. The amendment struck equitable lien and replaced it with gratuitous contribution. Gratuitous, like I just tipped a bartender. I took a photo, then another, my finger pointing to 4.7. I sent it to myself. Labeled it, receipt_4_7.png. That same week, Ethan texted, "I'm staying with a friend." Ellie posted a photo of us at the coast. 2 cones of soft serve and a caption, "Dad gets me." The comments were hearts and smileys. The kind that feel like sand in your teeth. I sat at the table with 2 stacks of paper. The farm stack and the kid stack. The farm stack said I was invisible on paper. The kid stack said I'd made myself invisible on purpose. And just when I thought I couldn't fall any further, my phone pinged. Payment to Ethan, $850. Declined. We'd been helping him with an apartment deposit for community college. I tried again. Declined. 2 minutes later, a text from Ethan, "Please stop. I don't want your money." I stared at the number on the screen. $8,500. That's what we promised over 8 months. For rent and books. It was a plan I'd drawn up in January down to the dollar because planning is what I do. Suddenly it was gone. Not by my choice. By theirs. That night, I sat in the dark kitchen and finally let the anger have a chair. It happened on Father's Day. Of course it did. Mom called that morning. "We're doing burgers at the house. Bring that potato salad everyone likes. James is bringing his new boat keys to show your dad." "Boat keys?" Asked like an idiot. "For the lake," she chirped. "It's good to have toys." I almost said, "I paid your mortgage while he bought a toy." But what came out was, "We'll be there at 2. We included no one. My house was quiet. Ellie had moved back to campus early for summer classes. Ethan hadn't been home since the photo in the backyard. My ex, Laura, had texted me 2 sentences the week before. "They're hurting. Give them time." I pulled into my parents' gravel drive at 1:58 p.m. Because I am punctual, even when I'm furious. The yard looked the way it always does on Father's Day. Coolers sweating in the shade, kids yelling, Aunt Carol waving a spatula like a bat. James stood by the grill in a crisp polo shirt, talking loud, making sure everyone knew he was important. "Hey, hero," he said, seeing me, a smirk on his face. "Save the farm and all. Family owes you." He laughed, a practiced hollow sound. The laugh bounced off my chest and fell to the ground. "Need a hand?" I asked, my voice flat. "Nah, we're good," he said, then slung an arm around my shoulders and steered me toward Dad's chair. "Quick thing," he whispered, like we were still brothers. "We filed a few changes with the trust. To simplify, nothing big, just structure." "Clause 4.7, I said. He blinked. "What?" "The equitable lien, the amendment, the signatures." He dropped his arm, his smile stretching too wide. "You've been reading, have you? Dangerous." I looked at Dad. He was cleaning his glasses, pretending he didn't hear. Mom wiped a spot on the patio table that didn't exist. I took out my phone and opened the photo. There it was, black and white, my finger pointing like an accusation. "Explain this." A hush fell over the patio. The way it does when a storm cloud crosses the sun. Dad cleared his throat. Son, we talked about this. You were making contributions because you love this place. You said so. I did, I said. And I meant it. But you recorded the property into an LLC with James as manager. You amended away my lien. You took my name off everything. And you did it while I made 60 payments that said otherwise. Mom's voice went small. James has children. He needs stability. I have children, I said, my voice rising. They just don't talk to me because I blew their graduation. But I still have them. James folded his arms, his smirk hardening. This is a family matter. Let's not embarrass ourselves. I kept my voice even, quiet, precise. I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I'm here to set boundaries and put facts on the table. I swiped to my bank ledger. Payment. $1,542.79. Payment. $1,542.79. 60 times. Taxes. Insurance. Repairs. I saved your basement when the sump failed. I hauled Phil to the south line when the water ate the road. I paid for the new roof after a windstorm because the policy lapsed. And while I did all that, you made me a donor. Aunt Carol tried to soften it. Charlie, honey, you've always been so generous. This isn't about generosity, I said, looking straight at her. This is about structure. It's about a promise. It's about not changing the rules in the fourth quarter and then handing my father's chair to the brother who brought boat keys. James's smile faltered. Watch your tone. I looked at him, really looked at him. The tan from the lake. The watch that probably cost more than my truck. The air of a man who's always landed soft. No, I said. You watch yours. I turned back to Dad. I want the amendment reversed. I want my lien recorded. Either that, or you cut me a check for the total of my contributions plus interest and I walk. But the error of me paying while being erased is over. Silence. Then Dad did what he always does. He tried to minimize. Let's not make this legal. We're family. I nodded. We are. Which is why I showed up to say it, not mail it. But I brought this too. I slid a clean, plain envelope from my jacket. My own letter, drafted the night before with help from a notary in town. Notice of intent, I said. If we don't resolve this in 30 days, I'll file for an equitable lien and petition the court. It wasn't a threat. It was a boundary. Before anyone could speak, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I answered because I needed a break from my own pounding heartbeat. Mr. Reed, the voice said. This is Daniel Chun, counsel for Ethan Reed. My blood ran cold. Counsel? Your son, he clarified. He's retained me. We're calling regarding the email to his registrar. We have it. We're requesting an immediate retraction and a letter of correction for his file. Additionally, we'd like to discuss the $8,500 support agreement you offered in January, and the messages that followed. I stared at the grass. He hired a lawyer. My son hired a lawyer. He did, Chun said. He's 18. He's allowed. Can you talk now? Everyone on the porch watched me hold that phone like a hand grenade. Yes, I said. My voice steady, surprising even myself. I can talk. And that was the moment everything shifted. James stopped smiling. Mom's hand stopped moving. Dad finally looked at me, really looked at me. The phone stayed by my ear. The porch went utterly quiet. And I said the thing I should have said before any AI chirped at us. I was wrong. The call started an hour later. A wave I could not stop. First came the texts. You're selfish. From James. Think about the kids. From Mom, as if mine weren't caught in the crosshairs. You're ruining us. From a number that turned out to be my cousin using Dad's phone. Then the voicemails. 27 in one afternoon. A chorus of adults who'd never been told no. Petition? Are you insane? You'll bankrupt your mother over paperwork. Grow up. Ethan's manipulating you. Ellie is fragile. You should protect her. Sell your truck before you talk about money. Every barb found an old bruise and pressed. I didn't yell back. I didn't send essay texts like I used to, explaining every choice until I was bleeding words. I did what my attorney, a woman named Ortiz, recommended by a neighbor, told me to do. Less mouth, more paper. I hired her with money I'd been saving for a new bailer. She suggested 3 steps. First, we drafted a formal demand to revoke the 4.7 amendment and recognize my equitable lien. We attached copies of my payments, the text chain where Dad used the phrase, "You keep us afloat," and the insurance receipt with my name when the policy lapsed. Ortiz flagged the amendment's unanimous consent language. Trustee duties require loyalty, she said. They can't amend to benefit an insider to the detriment of a contributor without disclosure. Not when there's a schedule of contributions. Second, we sent a letter to the registrar retracting my late-night email, explaining it was made in error and under personal duress. We asked that any note be removed from Ethan's record. I signed it. I did it without bargaining, without a single condition. Ortiz CC'd Attorney Chun, who replied with a professional received that felt like being let out of a chokehold. Third, Ortiz's paralegal filed a notice with the recorder. Claim of equitable interest. Parcel number 1183. It wasn't a lien yet, not formally, but it was a flag on the beach. If anyone tried to sell, they'd see my name. Meanwhile, I tightened my life like a belt. I set my phone to favorites only. I told my parents we'd communicate through counsel. I blocked James for 30 days. Not forever, just long enough to breathe. The farm didn't care about any of it. Cows still bawled at dawn. The irrigation line still coughed at 4 a.m. I fixed it in the dark, headlamp buzzing, crickets loud enough to drown the anxiety. Work has always been my medicine. It became my cleanest room. At night, the house was too quiet. I built a new routine out of simple things. Sweep the mudroom, brew tea, read Clause 4.7 like a prayer. I was learning how to say no without hating anyone. Sleep came in little pieces at first, then in longer stretches when my brain realized nobody would walk in and ask me for something at 2 a.m. The calls kept coming, but with boundaries, they lost their teeth. Without immediate access to my attention, people have to live with their own voices. It's amazing what goes quiet when you don't feed it. Ellie texted me on a Tuesday. You made me feel seen. I'm sorry it hurt, Ethan. I read it 3 times. Then I typed slowly. I love you. I messed up. I won't pick between you again. You get December. Your day, not his. Not shared. Yours. She didn't reply. That was okay. Apologies are seeds. They sprout when they're ready. Ethan called on a Wednesday. We sat in silence for a long time. Dad, he said finally. Why'd you do it? The app told me fairness looked like sameness. I said, a bitter taste in my mouth. But it wasn't the app. It was me. I wanted to stop a hurt and made a worse one. I hired a lawyer, he said, as if I might correct him. I'm glad you had someone, I replied honestly. I hurt you. You deserved an advocate. He exhaled. I don't want your money right now. I know, I said. Your boundary. I'll respect it. The offer stands if you ask later. Mom says you're taking Grandpa to court. I'm asking him to honor what I paid, I said. Not to punish him, to be fair to me for once. He was quiet again. Then, I sent you something. Ping. The photo from the backyard, the one he posted. He'd added a second frame, him smiling a little. The caption. Congrats to me. And to my dad when he figures his stuff out. No hearts, no thumbs up, just that. It was more than I deserved. Mom escalated when quiet didn't work. She sent Aunt Carol. The cousins agree. You should be the bigger person. Also, bring the mower. The back acre needs a pass. I sent one sentence, through Ortiz. I won't perform chores for a property held in an entity that denies my interest. James tried a new tactic. Pity. This is tearing us up, Charlie. Carrie's sick over it. Reverse the amendment. I said. Through my lawyer. Record my lien. He pivoted. Children need a family. Think of them. He meant his, not mine. I thought of mine anyway. Of Ethan's backyard cap and Ellie at the coast licking a cone she didn't finish. I thought of how love isn't a pie where one slice means less for another. Then I put on my boots and went to feed. Because animals believe what you do, not what you say. Small consequences started landing like rain. The bank called Dad about a refinance. The underwriter flagged my recorded claim of equitable interest. It complicates things, the banker said. Dad left me 3 messages in a voice I hadn't heard since I was a kid. Tight, angry, scared. Fix this, he snapped. You did this. No, I wrote back through Ortiz. You did this when you changed the rules. My sister-in-law Carrie texted me a long paragraph about community and sacrifice, then a shorter one that gave the game away. Honestly, with 3 kids, it just makes sense for James to manage the farm. You're always so busy with your projects. Projects? She meant work. I didn't answer. I took a photo of my hands after a day in the field. Cracked, dirty, strong. I saved it next to receipt_4_7.png. Not to show anyone. To remind myself of what is real when words get slippery. 2 weeks in, Attorney Chun emailed, "Thank you for the retraction." The registrar removed the note. Ethan is satisfied on that point. Regarding the $8,500 support, he declines. He does, however, ask that you stop triangulating with Ellie's AI app. He's blocked from the family dashboard. That should include you. I laughed out loud for the first time in days. Agreed. I wrote. I'm done letting a gadget parent my kids. I deleted my login. The silence in the house got cleaner. By week 3, the porch felt different under my feet. I slept 6 hours straight. I fixed the screen door that stuck since last summer. I made a decent omelet. I took a picture of the sunrise and didn't send it to anyone. When you stop serving, people take inventory. Some call you cruel. Some get resourceful. Some, to my surprise, get kind. Uncle Joe called the day before our 30-day deadline. Your dad's not budging, he said. He's embarrassed. He'll double down till he breaks. Then he'll break, I said, a new resolve in my voice. You okay? I'm more okay than I've been, I said, and I meant it. 30 days passed with no movement. So Ortiz filed. Not fireworks, just a docket number and a September date with a judge who probably owns no boots. James texted, "You'll regret this." I looked at clause 4.7. My hands, Ethan's backyard cap, Ellie's ice cream, and something clicked like a fence post set true. I regret the years I made myself small. A month later, the first hearing went our way on standing. The judge said, "My contributions appear significant." One sentence. A door opening. I drove home slow, fed the cows, listened to the cicadas. Ethan stopped by. "I start Monday. No help needed. Proud of you." He nodded at the field. "Ask if you ever need a hand. Not because I owe you. Because I'm your son." Ellie called. Passed her class. December still the plan. "I'll bring a stupid sign." She laughed. "Deal." Mom came by. "We thought we were making it easier for James." "I'm someone's kid too," I reminded her. Before she left, she handed me a copy of Dad's unsent apology. Not perfect enough. My ledger now. Sleep back. Noise down. Work honest. Kids real. Farm in limbo. But my name's in the file. I'm not the background man anymore. Closure isn't revenge. It's a boundary you say and you keep. And now I keep one new silver key on its own ring. What about you? Have you ever had to draw a line in the sand, even with family, to protect yourself or what you believe in? How did that turn out? Let me know in the comments below.